All right, I got 5:30. Call to order. Please rise. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, commissioners. Good evening, Leavenworth. Hope everybody's having a good day. Pretty weather today. May not be tomorrow night. Let me get through a roll call here real quick. I know that Commissioner Bailey will be in a little bit late. Mr. Rosenthal?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Gutschalk?
Here.
Mr. Spink?
Here.
Mr. Tysted?
Here.
Mr. Owens?
Here.
Mr. Skeet?
Here.
Alan Stork?
Here.
And Marcus Major. All right. Okay, right now we're 9 of 10 of us total. Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes. The minutes were pretty short for this one from their last meeting, but
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, let me call roll. Steve Rosenthal?
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt?
Abstain because I missed them.
Yep, got it. William Gutschalk?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
Doug Tysted?
Abstain. I was absent.
Robert Owens?
Yes.
Steve Skeet?
Yes.
And Alan Stork?
Yes.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. 9. Okay. I was going to say approval of minutes. Already done. Secretary report.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners.
evening.
On your agenda today, we have 6 items on the consent agenda. Again, a reminder, once you approve the agenda, those items are automatically approved. Then we have 3 items on the regular agenda, a plat with an exception, a rezoning, and then a language amendment. Those are all that we have for you today, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Do I have any declarations? Any declarations to claim? Okay. Well, with that, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move that we. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Doug, motion. Wolf, sure. Did you second?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Approval of agenda. Any discussions? Okay, I'll call roll. Steve Rosenthal,
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt,
Yes.
William Gutschalk,
Yes.
Jeff Spink,
Yes.
Doug Tysted,
Yes.
Robert Owens,
Yes.
Steve Skeet,
Yes.
Alan Stork,
Yes.
Marcus Major. Yes. 9, 10. Okay, the consent and the agenda have been approved. We'll move over to the first item of the regular agenda. Agenda item number 9A. The Leavenworth County Planning Commission will now hear case DEV 24-042 and 043. Preliminary and final plat, Horvath Estates as outlined in posted agenda. This is not a public hearing item. The planning staff now give a staff report.
All right. Case DEV 24, 42, and 43, as mentioned, is a preliminary and final plat consideration. The applicant is proposing 2 lots that would become Horvath Estates on the property located at 20050 171st Street. This parcel currently has a single-family residence with a few accessory structures. Those structures would stay on Lot 1. Lot 2 would be split off on the southern half there. This request does require an exception from the lot width to lot depth requirement for Lot 1. So again, we would need a motion for the exception before you can approve the plat. Otherwise, I don't have any other additions other than the fact that it does comply with the regulations if you approve that exception.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Make a note, Commissioner Jaden Bailey has now arrived. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I got your note earlier.
Had a late patient.
That's all right. That's all right. Hopefully they didn't leave in any kind of pain.
No, they're good.
Okay, so we're at the regular agenda, case 9A.
Thank you.
All right, yes, sir. It's an exception. It's 2 actions. So does the applicant wish to speak?
Good evening, Commissioner. Joe Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. Didn't want to shortchange you by not getting up here. But the staff said it, handled it great. The only thing is on the exception, there is a floodplain in the back, which, is unusable, so it benefits the fact that we're asking for that exception. And that's the only thing I wanted to add. Here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any additional information to be presented? No additional? Okay. Questions, comments, members of the commission? So what I could pull from it is 2 lots, one at 4.89 and one at 5.0.
What's the width depth ratio now with this?
It's the future land use map being just a little shy of the 5 acres is really, is what it is. Is that?
The lot
Some-
depth to lot width, for that lot, it should
Yeah.
be 1 to 3.5. It's a little bit over that on lot 1.
Thanks. Appreciate you clearing that up. Any other questions or? Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the exception. The Leavenworth County Planning Commission will hear the case, DEV 24-042, for the exception.
I'll move that we approve the exception for DEV 24-42 and 043 for Horvath Estates.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the exception to both 4.2 and 4.3. And I have a second. Is there any discussion of the motion? All right, let me call roll here. Give me just a second. All right, I have a motion and a second. No discussion. Let me call roll. Steve Rosenthal?
Yes.
Jaden Bailey?
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt?
Yes.
William Gutschalk?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
Doug Tystead?
Yes.
Robert Owens?
Yes.
Steve Skeet?
Yes.
Alan Stewart?
Yes.
All right. Motion carries for the exception. 9-0. Recount that twice. All right. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, the motion's carried 9-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve the plat.
I'll move that we approve case number DEV 24-042 and 043, the preliminary and final plat for Horvath Estates as outlined based on the global factors as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the plat? All right. Let me call roll. Steve Rosenthal?
Yes.
Jaden Bailey?
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt?
Yes.
William Gutschalk?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
Doug Tystead?
Yes.
Robert Owens?
Yes.
Steve Skeet?
Yes.
Alan Stewart?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 9-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than June 26, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Agenda item 9 Bravo. The Leavenworth County Planning Commission will now consider case DEV 24-045, a rezoning request from RR5 to RR 2.5 as outlined in the posted agenda. This requires a public hearing. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Planning staff report.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. The next case is case DEV 24-045. It is a rezoning request of the properties located at 25402 Metro Avenue. The request is to rezone from RR5 to RR 2.5. The properties are identified as RR 2.5 based off the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. The concept plan provided is a proposed 3-lot subdivision where Lot 3 has the existing house and outbuildings. All 3 lots will have over 3 acres of property on there. Staff reviewed the request based off the 7 golden factors, which are considered during a rezoning request. Analysis of those factors can be found in your staff report. Staff is supportive of the request as it conforms with the future land use map. The applicant is here to discuss their request further and to answer any questions you may have. With that being said, I am subject to your questions.
Thank you, Josh. Upon opening this public comment portion. Yes, sir.
There seemed to be some question, and I'm not certain I understood the answer, on the entrance to either Metro or whatever the other road was, due to that existing pond. Could you explain that a little bit further for me, please?
Yes, sir. So Public Works had submitted a comment on there. They're saying that there could be an issue depending on where the entrance is located at on there, as it could probably go kind of in front of the pond or like right next to the pond, which would go into some of the flood zone area. So they're just kind of limited with that. But based off of their comments, they said that they don't foresee any other issues with that.
So the intention, if I could hop in here real quick, the intention there is to notify the applicant in this part of the development stage that there's a potential for some issues as you plat. So that's why they identified the comment at the rezoning stage. So when we get to the platting stage, we'll definitely address the access component as it relates to the floodplain and any potential structure.
And we'll have to look at the actual, on the plat, where the entrance is in relation to the geography associated with the potential flood.
Right. From an access standpoint and a minimum design standpoint, it's the road frontage along the platted road that you're really looking at from the platting standpoint. The actual access component can be done by encumbrances on the property. In other words, access easements to adjoining properties, or potentially they can do something with what they have here. But again, we can't identify that until we go through the platting process, and I think the intent there is the potential for structure within the defined floodway. So, again, it's a preliminary comment just to put the applicant on alert. This is going to be an issue when you move forward to the platting stage.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good point. Is also address the limited of the 200-foot versus 300-foot. Yeah,
right.
Yep, got it, read it off. Yep, thanks. Good point there, Commissioner. Any other questions, discussions? Okay. Upon opening this public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. Will the applicant please come forward?
Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th. Staff covered it very well again. It meets the comprehensive plan. It's already such a wide tract of land, 1,320 feet plus wide and not very deep. So the division of it, we did look at going at 4 lots. The clients decided that that was really stretching the ability there with the topography and the floodplain to not try 4 lots. Let's go with 3. Still going to have issues with the floodplain on that western one, but that is, it does have some buildable space, and they understand that. Utilities have all signed off on the additional 2 houses in this area. I think it's the best use of the property. The owners are here, and I don't know if they're going to speak right now or not, but we do, if there are any objections that need some clarification, ask for the right to be able to come back up and address any concerns that are brought up through this public hearing. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. We will now hear from those individuals present wishing to speak in favor of the request. Okay. We'll now hear from those individuals present wishing to speak in opposition of the request. All right. Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
Yeah, you did a good job laying it out, Josh. Okay. The public comment portion of this public hearing is now closed. Kansas law allows for a petition protesting the decision of the Planning Commission to be filed. That petition must be filed within 14 days after the date of the public hearing. Additional information on the filing of a protest petition can be obtained from the Office of Planning and Zoning. Are there any questions or comments from the members of the commission? Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion on this request.
Mr. Chairman, I move that in case DEV 24-045, rezoning from RR5 to RR 2.5, based on the concept plan that we approve this rezoning request.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, let me do a roll call vote. Steve Rosenthal?
Yes.
Jaden Bailey?
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt?
Yes.
William Gutschalk?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
Doug Tysted?
Yes.
Robert Owens?
Yes.
Steve Skeet?
Yes.
Alan Stewart?
Yes.
All right. The motion is carried by a vote of 9-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than July the 3rd, 2024 meeting. The commission agenda is posted on the Leavenworth County website and is available for public viewing. Brings us to our last agenda item for tonight, number 9, Charlie. The Leavenworth County Planning Commission will now consider case DEV 24-006, consideration of amendments to the 2006 Leavenworth County zoning and subdivision regulations as outlined in the posted agenda. The planning staff will now give a report.
All right. Before you is DEV 24-006. You guys might have remembered this from our study session a couple of months ago. I'm not going to go through it all in depth again unless you have specific questions. But as a brief reminder, this language amendment will amend the special use permit section, which would then create a tiering system, type 1 through type 4, separating out the various different types of special uses based off the intensity of their use. Based off that tiering system, then staff will have a departmental policy. So it's not going to be in the regulations, but it's a departmental policy, which would be the basis of our recommendation for timelines. So type 1 would be an indefinite timeline staff would recommend, type 2, 10 to 20, 3 is 5 to 10, and then type 4 is 1 to 3 years. Again, that is just staff's recommendation. That is not going to be written policy. Go to the next one. We are also proposing amendments to the home occupation license section. Again, moving that out of the definition section and into the actual regulations. The Board of County Commissioners did hold a work session over these regulations. They did have one change they would like to see, and that is that the home occupation shall take place inside a structure, but shall not exceed more than 75% of the floor area of any structure. And that applies to both the single-family residence and the accessory structure. We had a little bit more stringent regulations, which is what we proposed to you. The BOCC wanted to make that a little bit more broader. Otherwise, the rest of that has stayed the same. And then the last slide I have for you today is just the other regulations outlined there for you, such as codifying accessory dwelling units, changing the preliminary drainage and road plan requirements. The one thing that the Board of County Commissioners asked us to completely take out of this language amendment is the agricultural conservation easements. They felt that floodplain regulations and other regulatory requirements from state and federal law would protect agricultural lands, so they did not see that as necessary at this time. Other requirements would be to amend the cross-access easement to limit CAEs to 8 lots or less, and then put a few requirements on, such as the width of the easement and such there. We also are codifying the requirements for development plans, which you guys have looked at in depth before. And then last is just adding definitions for those items accordingly to our regulations. That is all that we are proposing at this time. So if you have questions, let me know. But again, just wanted to be brief and get to the public hearing section.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
go back one slide, please. No, let's try 2 slides, please. There we go. We had talked about the special use permit tier system, and I saw the red line additions. I have one concern, I think, in that the special use permit language, as it remains, says that they're if I'm not mistaken, says that they are unlimited, and you're putting it, and we're asking for a departmental policy that puts timelines on them. Are we setting ourselves up for a problem there?
Unlimited in what terms?
In the text, it said that once approved, a special use permit was unlimited in time, and that it would be, we'd build a list, that the planning staff would build a list every year of the special use permits, and then go through them and see if there are any complaints or anything of that nature.
That's the intent, is to change that portion of the language. That's the way it exists today. So what you have there is a legal non-conforming use. So it would continue unless there were issues. Then it would become an enforcement issue. And if it were revoked, then it would have to comply with the new language. So that's the intent, and that's what happens typically when you change a language amendment. What was approved prior to that change becomes a legal non-conforming use. And so long as you don't lose that legal non-conforming status, you can maintain the use. It's when the use is abandoned, and I believe for purposes. Go ahead.
And did you change the verbiage?
Yes.
To make that clear? Because obviously it wasn't clear to me in the verbiage.
I think you're talking about the change for existing special use permits. We can obviously amend the language to make it more clear, but it says all valid special use permits which remain in compliance with the approved conditions of the permit or have no substantiated complaint shall be approved without expiration upon the approval of this amendment. Meaning, at the time the amendment happened back in 2022, any special use permit that met those criteria would be approved without expiration until such time that they were no longer compliant. That did not give approval for non-expiration SUPs from here on out.
Okay, and so as we go forward then and we build the 4 tiers, we're going to departmental policy. I did not, and again, it may have just been that I was doing the Evelyn Wood speed reading and not understanding, but how did we put into the language there that going forward, there will be a departmental policy which limits.
So maybe I can hop in here and
Please.
clarify. So the intent of the departmental policy is to give a basis of recommendation for a term of time to both the Planning Commission and the BOCC when they're making a determination on intensity of use. So we as staff can recommend indefinite. You, as a commission, can change that recommendation at your discretion. So can the Board of County Commissioners. So that is the purpose, to have a departmental policy that we will in general terms conform to what you see here as a recommendation of timeline. The intent is that very few SUPs are going to be indefinite when they're issued from this point on. The intent is to have more control over the special use permit process and not be arbitrary in your granting of time. However, staff can't mandate that you adhere to that schedule. That's why we can't make it a formal textual policy. That's why it has to be a departmental policy, so that we can give a basis of information to give you a defined timeline. We recommend, because of the intensity of use, that it's 1 to 3 years or 5 to 10. Then it's up to you to either agree with us or amend that recommendation.
Okay, and I guess because I'm not a lawyer, as I read this, what we're recommending and what we have written, are we clear enough in the regulation so that we don't box ourselves in for legal disputes? If we then come in and say, hey, we're only going to approve this for 1 to 3 years, do they then say, no, these are indefinite?
No, we're comfortable with the language. In fact, you had one before you not 2 months ago that you did define a specific timeline on post that language change from 2020.
Okay.
So we're confident in the language and our ability to tier it based on the
criteria. On that one yet?
Not yet.
There's still time. As Misty says, it could happen any day. You know? But my question is on the SUPs, regarding current SUPs that are either not meeting our current county policies or have been stopped at a state level for any given reason, those SUPs will still stay in effect because prior to this, they had an unlimited stoppage date. Am I correct on that?
Let me answer this one. So, being a lawyer, with every situation, there can be some nuances to it. But in general, the prior SUPs that were issued with an indeterminate date, this is not going to change that. If the use is abandoned or if there's a revocation, we come forward with violations to revoke the SUP, then there's going to be a change. So in essence, all the SUPs that were issued before with an indeterminate date, they're grandfathered in until something changes.
That's okay. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
I have one question about a sale of a property that has an SUP on it. If a property has one and the property sells, and the person wants to continue the special use permit on that one, and it was in-house, is that going to still remain in-house, or is that going to come towards the planning commission again as a new one?
That
question.
was changed.
Yes, the BOCC intended to have the SUP process begin or restart after the sale of a property. So as it stands, if these are adopted, it is their intent that if you sell your property, the buyer will have to come in through the SUP process again.
Now, I thought it said in here,
The existing language that was prior to this proposed change said that you had 60 days.
so that's going to change.
That will change.
Anybody has to come in and do
Right.
the
Then the-
process, even if it's doing exactly the same thing.
Their intent that they expressed to us was once ownership changes, they want the SUP process to begin again. So in other words, the rights are terminated on transfer of title.
That's a good question.
Special use permit is for the.
And was there a
It's for the
red
person.
line
Yeah.
that changed that? I don't remember reading it.
The original red line that you see was from the original amendments that we made. We did have that in there. She will check on that, but that was a verbatim change from the BOCC as a product of the study session.
I apologize. That did not make it into this red line. So, if you guys approve it, then it would need to be with the change of removing the 60-day showing proof of ownership change. So, I apologize. I don't know how I missed that.
No, that's good. And that means we're actually doing all the reading of the packet that you're giving us.
Appreciate it.
So that's a good news story.
A lot of reading.
It was. A lot of red lines, too.
It's been through many iterations at this point, so.
Back up, make sure I understand this. So with the sale of a property, even if the property sale was 3 months ago, are they still going to be on the grandfathered in deal since we haven't changed our wording yet?
Until that policy becomes law, we are in our existing text.
Okay.
So they could transfer title. It requires a 60-day notice. Until this changes, that's the way it stays.
Okay.
So once this goes to the Board of County Commissioners and they approve it, after their order, then it changes. And from that point on, if there's a transfer of title, they have to begin the SUP process again.
I got it.
And when will they hear that we approve it today?
The earliest it could be heard is July 3rd. And just for clarification, that would be amending the Article 22, Section 2, the final two sentences under that section.
Any other questions?
I think you got it, Joe.
Okay. With all this good discussion, I have completely lost where I am on this particular case.
You're ready for the public hearing.
That's what I was going to say. I don't believe I've opened for public hearing yet. Okay. All right. But it's good. It's good. I mean, it's good. That's what we're up here for. That is good. But goodness gracious. Okay. All right. Upon opening this public comment portion of the hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your full name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. We will now hear from those individuals present wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this request. Oh, you thought I tripped you up, didn't you?
That's right. Joe Herring, Sylvain, 315 North 5th Street. Not in favor or in opposition, really, of the overall thing. I think what's happening here is we're getting some good definitions and getting things more clarified on how to proceed with development in SUPs, and I think that's very important to clear up some bad areas of our regulations that have been neglected over the years. But with that, this is a lot of information. We've seen this in a work session. I've seen it in another work session between staff and BOCC. There's still a lot of information there. It's hard a lot to get it consumed in one meeting, and this is the most discussion I've seen from Planning Commission and staff on these regulations, which I would have liked to see more at the work session, more interaction and more understanding of what we're doing here. The tiered system, yes, I believe it's needed, but I don't know if the email from a client of mine that was sent to the BOC was included. His concern is on a 1 to 3 year type 4, that's the most intense use, which will most likely have the most amount of investment into the property to get that use up and running. And to limit it to 1 to 3 year puts a big strain on it. Just want you guys to think about that. That's going to be a big issue if you come in with somebody that has a $500,000 investment in an event center that falls under that tier, a contractor's yard, anything like that. I think that's a big thing, so I hope you guys discuss that more tonight. The sale of the property and not carrying over the SUP makes it hard for you to sell your business. If you have, say you have storage in your backyard, outdoor storage or indoor storage, and you're selling the house with the business. Well, now you're rolling the dice for the buyers. Can they purchase it with that business? So you technically makes it hard to sell your business if that's your goal to retire and get out of what you were doing. Those are the main things on the SUPs. SUPs are always highly contested and controversial, so good luck. Cross-access easements. If you were here in the beginning of cross-access easement, it's really supposed to be a hands-off kind of situation. It gave the developers the right to go in there and put in a road without much county control and county guidance in it. Now, from developing lot regulations, yes. I don't like to see putting 8 lots as a limit on them, because that stops somebody with maybe 12 lots that just wants to put in a less than developed county road to standards with asphalt. They don't get that option. Now, their option when they go 12 and they want to keep it private, according to staff, is that they can apply for a PUD. So there is an avenue to get to the private road through a PUD. The problem with a PUD is your road now has to be built to county standards, if I'm correct. I think that's what we discussed.
You are correct.
And that really takes the cross-access easement and kind of hinders it. What's the difference between 8 to 12 lots or 8 to 14 lots? We've had great developments with cross-access easements. We've seen some bad ones. So it's tough there. The reasoning I was told was that 8 lots is what gets you to a major plat from a minor. Anytime you put in an interior road, it becomes a major plat anyway. So I don't care if you have 3 or 4 lots. It's a major plat once you put in infrastructure. So, maybe we can relax that number or not put a number on it. And then a clarification question is the 50-foot radius on a private drive, does that affect on a 2-lot? Because they're the only ones with a private drive. 3 lots or more, it's a private road. Mm-hmm. Do the 2-lot private drives have to install a 50-foot cul-de-sac at the end?
50-foot radius the radius element has to do with emergency turnarounds. So that really, from a staff standpoint, is non-negotiable, because even though it is a private driveway, that's a life safety issue. So, yeah, the 50-foot radius is both a building code requirement, and it will transfer from fire and EMS. So,
right, because Public Works does not look at 2 lots at all. It's a driveway. It's allowed to be a 10-foot gravel drive.
Right,
No
that's a shared
review
access.
on design, no nothing. It's basically a shared access.
That's what a 2-lot is.
Yes.
When you're getting to 3, you're truly getting into the CAA. But I'll wait and respond when you're done.
So
If you
that's
want
my
me to.
question is 2 lots. It's really just a shared access that staff Public Works doesn't even look at the design of the driveway. It's just a driveway. Does that 50-foot radius have to be enforced on a 2-lot situation? That's a clarification question. Hopefully you guys talk about the other stuff and, maybe need to table it or whatever to get some more information on it. A lot of information.
Joe, question for you.
Yes.
Going back to type 4, one of the things I looked at on that there is the gap. The 3, you're bringing that up. We go from that jump up to 5 to 10. Is there a suggestion that you're thinking of for that there?
It's about the amount of investment, what they're putting into it and how long it takes to get something up and running. Because you have to get the SUP first before you really want to invest and start creating your business, whatever you're doing. And that may take a year and a half. I think the 1 to 3 is tight. I like the ability to control the most, what do I want to say?
Intense,
possible controversial SUPs. We just don't want everything out in the county, but I think it will hinder some.
So if it was like a 1 to 5?
Maybe the 5 is better, something to talk about. I mean, I didn't come up with the numbers. I just know that.
We can change it to whatever we.
Yeah, again, that's a departmental policy, not a textural policy. So that's going to be our recommendation. You don't have to stay to 1 to 3. You are completely within your rights to move to 5 to 10 if you want to. That will be up to the developer to make that case.
And I was hoping that you would respond.
Well, again, it's a public hearing, so I will do that at the discretion of the chair. Chair, do you want me to respond to these items, or I don't know that Mr. Herring's
you're
done.
doing fine. Yeah.
Mr. Herring, do you have additional
No,
comments?
I like the fact that you're addressing that they can expand it if they see necessary.
Yeah, again, as I said when we were talking about it earlier, it's a departmental policy. So what this is, the intent of this is to give a basis of recommendation from staff. We don't want an arbitrary recommendation. We like this, we think it should be 6. No, we're basing our recommendation off the intensity of use, which is why you need a tiering system, in our opinion. The tiering system, by the way, is in your comprehensive plan as well. So what we're doing is giving a basis of determination. If the Planning Commission feels, based on the case that the developer makes, that it needs more than 3 years, then they certainly are within their rights to establish 6 years or make their recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, in which case the developer then would have to make their case in front of the BOCC to see if they agree with that timeline or not. Again, these are recommendations by staff. They're not written in stone saying that you absolutely can't go out of 1 to 3 years. Another thing to keep in mind here is that you have a vehicle within the zoning ordinance, a PUD. It's a useful tool. If you have a massive amount of investment in a particular site, then to me, logic would dictate that maybe a PUD is a better option so that you don't have to come in every 3 years or every 5 to 10 years. You're married to a development plan, and if that plan passes, your investment is secure. So there are a number of ways to get that done. In my opinion, that's probably the best. But in the absence of that, and you go to an SUP, staff has to have a basis of determination to give you an idea of a timeline based on the developer's narrative.
I think it's basically trying to give clarification of somewhat objective measures in a naturally subjective.
It is the intent to do that without codifying a mandatory 1 to 3, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. We're trying to identify, based on intensity of uses, what we are going to recommend to you and why. That will be completely dependent on the narrative that the developer provides. Let's move on to the CAEs for a minute and the limitation to the CAEs of 8 lots. The intention of a CAE was really, as I understand it from the code language that I see, was to allow for the separation of lots for family members. 4, 5, 6, 7 lots on larger tracts of land so that family members could live in a communal setting without having to put in a road built to a county standard. That, to me, is completely permissible and acceptable to do. However, when you move into a standard subdivision and you get past the 8 lots, okay, you get past 8 lots and you get to, say, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 lots, and that road is not up to a county standard, to me, that is an issue. So if the intent of the regulation is to allow for families to subdivide properties for themselves, I think it's perfectly permissible, but let's limit that to a minor subdivision, which would be 8 lots. When we move past that, there are certain development costs that are incurred as part of development that you have to accept, in my view, if you're a developer. They cost what they cost. If you're going to be in that business, then you have to be able to, put those public improvements in, and they're there for a reason. So from a staff's standpoint, that's why you see the recommendation of 8 lots and limited to a minor subdivision.
So you chose 8 lots
because that's the
based
difference.
Off experience, existence?
Because the difference between a major and minor plat is levied at 8 lots.
Okay. Yeah.
So a minor plat, in my opinion, would qualify for the family subdivision element that really the CAA was put in place for, to exclude the public improvement costs for really what is a family compound. I certainly understand that logic, but when we move past that and it gets into a standard subdivision setting, then I think, from a staff standpoint, from a planning standpoint, those public improvements really need to be to a minimum standard. And so far, we've got agreement both at this commission and at the Board of County Commissioners at that number. Okay. 2 work sessions. Any other questions related to textual amendments?
We can go back to the 4-tier system real quick before we come off. This is a recommendation. This is what the Board of County Commissioners came back to: 1 to 3, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. Tonight, if we came back to them with, if we went 1 to 5, type 4, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, if we did something like that.
Again, these are departmental policies. This is just our recommendation.
Yeah.
So, we're identifying, we're not necessarily codifying this.
Right.
We're just telling you in brackets, this is what we're going to recommend.
Okay.
And the Board of County Commissioners had a very similar question to what you guys had. Are we limited to 1 to 3, 5 to 10?
Yeah.
No, you are not. You
We're not.
have the authority to go outside these. We're trying to identify this departmental policy so
Okay.
that you understand why we're recommending the timelines that we are, and they're not arbitrary. They're based on the intensity of use and based on the narrative that's submitted by the applicant. So we're trying to match those two decisions so you understand the recommendation. We identify it here so you know the basis of our decision making.
And I would note that Joe's point about an event center or something would not necessarily fall under a type 4.
No.
Again, it's going to be completely dependent on a narrative.
Right, and so we'd be looking at higher time periods, if not indefinite, if someone's going to invest, a significant amount of money
Right.
on an event center type thing, as long as we're certain in our minds that the nuisance that it could pose, and they can pose a nuisance to neighbors and other users. But I mean, as long as we're satisfied, we can go all the way up. I mean, I get it now.
So at the end of the day, I would pose the same scenario that I did earlier. If you have that level of investment, you have multiple uses on the site, presumably there will be multiple uses with a large amount of investment, then really the vehicle to get that done as opposed to an indefinite SUP is a PUD. Because the PUD requires a development plan, which means you as the developer committed to that development plan. If you go outside of that development plan that you yourself have prepared, well, now you have to start the process over again. But it's not an SUP. That is the reason that tool is in the toolbox, so that you can accommodate those particular uses.
And that's transferable on itself.
A PUD is transferable. It runs with the land. It does not have to be repeated once there is transfer of title. That is only applicable to an SUP. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I was just smiling with a PUD that's transferable. So,
Well, if it's those rights are transferable. Once it's rezoned, it's like any other zoning category. If you want to change it, then you have to rezone it.
And that can't ever be done like in a retroactive. So I'm
It cannot.
thinking of like current
No.
people with SUPs if they're worried about trying.
Well, it's always something that's on the table. Now, does that mean that you want to see 500 PUDs in your county? Probably not.
No.
But the intention here is that the SUP is not the answer for everything. There is a permanent answer, and that permanent answer is a PUD. That puts the onus on the developer to make his case to the board and to the BOCC to understand what they're going to do and to protect that investment. The best way to do that is to rezone. If you're going to rezone and there's a mixture of uses, the vehicle to accommodate that is a PUD, and it's existed for the entirety of the term of your zoning ordinance. So that tool is always there. I don't know that it's been used a lot, but I don't think Joe has an issue using that tool to accommodate protection for his clients. And honestly, it's the most definitive protection that his clients could possibly have. Once it's done, so long as the development plan is complied with. If it's not, then they have to go through the process again and adjust the development plan with those particular uses identified and approved or not approved. So again, the best way to protect large investment is that vehicle.
Talking in circles.
Well, I got one point. The tier 4 is the ones we have the most problem with, because when they spend millions of dollars, they leave millions of dollars worth of a mess for the county to clean up. Most of them are fine. We have them few, and we all know who they are. That just leaves a big mess for us. So I'm fine I'd be fine with 1 to 2 years on a tier 4. So,
well, again, that is entirely up to the commission and the Board of County Commissioners. From a staff level, when you see a recommendation from us, you're going to see a recommendation based on this criteria.
Yeah.
And based on the narrative on the intensity of use. And intensity of use, like you're talking about, we're going to recommend. It may be 1 year. It might be 3. But from a staff standpoint, it's probably not going to be past the 3. If they make a case to you to extend it past that, that is your option. It's your prerogative to do that. Then it must make it through the Board of County Commissioners as well. They have to agree, or they can adjust the timeline. That is the nature of an SUP.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is great discussion. We are in a public hearing on this matter, and so I think the give and take is great. We should contain ourselves to the topics that we're here to discuss. I'd like to also point out on this department policy, and John's going to correct me if I'm wrong here, because I think he might like that, but this department policy is a policy that John, as a planning director, plans to make internally. So this board has 2 bites at the apple at it. Today, if you would like to advise him that you would prefer type 4 be to 1 to 5 years, you can do that. As a director, he can go make his policy, and if he comes forward with a recommendation that you don't like, you can certainly change it at that time. So I think we're getting a little bit hung up on what's here, but it's right now just kind of an FYI, this is what he's intending to do.
Because it's not in what we're voting on tonight at all, right? Correct.
That's my understanding.
No, we're voting on language. It's basically language amendments tonight is what we're voting on.
It's the tiering system that you're voting on. We're qualifying that with the departmental policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Anybody got any questions for Joe?
I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate staff's explanation, especially with the PUDs. I think that's great. Not to break too many hearts here, but I do have a family event, so good evening.
Oh, yeah, you come in here and drop that on us and then walk out. I like that. Drop the mic, Joe. Drop the mic, Joe. Okay. Is there any other additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
We still have the public.
Yeah, public
Yeah.
hearing's still open.
Yes.
We only heard one person, and there's more out there. I don't know if they want to speak.
I didn't. Do I have any more? Do I have? Okay. Do I have any other individuals that like to speak in favor or opposition of this request? Okay. And I asked if there's any additional information to be presented. We pretty much covered it in a lot of detail. You knew ahead of time we were going to have this discussion. And that's a good thing. That means everyone's reading and doing their homework before they come, which is really good. Okay. All right. In this case, the public comment portion of the public hearing is now closed. Are there questions or comments from the members of the commission that we haven't already covered?
I am actually think on the cross-access easement, 8 lots is too much. I mean, we don't want a bunch of cross subdivisions, 8 lots or with, in the county that are all on cross-access easements.
Well, again,
Of course, plenty, and that would be probably more than a family would require anyway.
it really depends on the acreage. We see some pretty large acreages out there that they tend to carve up. And staff's intent is not to ruin that right of local property owners to divide their property with their children. And typically what we'll see is 8 or less. I mean, Amy can correct me if I'm wrong. That's typically what we see in those particular situations. So it was a logical number to put in with a division of minor and major subdivisions. The intent is to make sure that future developers actually build infrastructure that's compliant with the standards that are out there.
Are we going to ask them how many children they have?
Well, I don't know that I qualify it in that way.
It's going to be just for family members, or they got 8 members who are going to actually be on there. I would think that probably is going to happen. They're going to sell some of those, and the family members will leave, and, they'll
That's
go to other locations and sell, and then still the cross-set is there with those lots. So I honestly think 8 is too much. I think this is meant for family members to do that. I don't think you're going to see 8 family members build up on one parcel of property.
Could we put like a sub-classification that classifies it based upon acreage? Like if it's above so-and-so acres, it's 8, and if it's below that, it's 4?
We could. The one thing I would say is that, again, contrary to what you've been doing over a period of years here, that we intend to every year come back in and take a look at these policies. I don't want you to think this is one shot. This is the only shot you're going to get to address these policies. I want you on an annual basis to be thinking about this, and come January, when we bring these things to you, adjust accordingly, like we're doing here tonight. At this stage, from a staff level, for continuity, for policy continuity. In other words, it's going to coincide with a lot of other recommendations, not being in contrast to a lot of other recommendations. 8 made sense from a staff level. Certainly understand your point, all thoughts that we had as well. However, there are other pieces of the zoning ordinance, the zoning regulations, sorry, I have to get the city vernacular out, but that we have to try to tie together. The problem with amending a regulation on a case-by-case basis is it becomes very fractured. So when you amend, you have to put an eye to what continuity are you creating by the textual amendments that you have, and then adjust those on an annual basis when you go through this process. So philosophically, I don't disagree with you at all, and that is a great suggestion. I don't know that we're prepared to do that at that level at this point, and then take it again through the Board of County Commissioners. This has been through two study sessions, 2 work sessions at this point. I agree. It's something that you probably ought to look at. Let's take a look and see what happens over the next year. It's been unregulated so far since its inception in 2020. We know what we have there. Let's see what we have in a 12-month period that comes back, and you might be exactly right. And if that's the case, then we bring it back to a work session and we take it to the Board of County Commissioners in a work session and say, we need to adjust this. That would be staff's recommendation.
And we can do that just in a study session and revoke that new terminology?
You can.
With no legalities or anything?
Well, you're going to have to, when you're going through the formal action to change, it does require a public hearing. It does require everything that you did here tonight. But the intent is to have work sessions to qualify all the things that we talked about here tonight and make sure that the product that's leaving that work session is one that you're all comfortable with moving forward to the next phase.
And this is limited at 8, but prior to this, there's been no limit.
There's been no limit, right. So it's been a concern from a staff level that we get a 30 or 40 lot subdivision on a driveway. So that's why you see what you see. And again, judging from past development over the last couple of years, truly you're seeing larger subdivisions, less acreage. So the lot count really is more critical, and it's the density element that you're kind of running into at this point. So that's why the 8 lots accommodates both camps. Mm-hmm. It allows you a larger acreage if you're truly doing what the intent of the regulation is, and it limits you if you're coming in with a subdivision of 30 or 40 lots. You're going to have to build to a public standard.
So something that applies to that in terms of the county standards, then, does that vary upon density? So I'm thinking like some of the cases we've had where it's 1 acre lots, like at some point in time, can the county have standards of curb and gutter and all that kind of
There
stuff?
are elements of the zoning regulations, depending on the type of criteria subdivision, that can require that. It very rarely does that occur. I don't think it's the intent of the Board of County Commissioners to put in additional infrastructure requirements outside of the roadway, the compacted ditches, greater ditches, those types of things. What you're really speaking to is technical specifications that actually go through the county engineer and actually through the Board of County Commissioners for approval. So I don't see curbs and gutters in subdivisions in the foreseeable future.
I was just using this, but I was just thinking of ones that are closer to the city. That
Sure,
we're
no.
talking about could be. Well, why don't we?
Which is why we get the comments from the cities when they are within that 660-foot range.
Yeah.
If it is your intent to annex, then logically it's your intent for them to build at your technical specifications. That's your opportunity to comment on it, which we do in every plat that's within that 660-foot range.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
These are really good discussions. I bet when you came here tonight, you didn't think you were going to have these kind of discussions tonight on these, but this is really good. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion on the request
I move that we approve case number DEB 24-006, 2024 language amendment, part 1, amendments to articles 3, 22, 33, 35, 40, 43, 50, and 60 of the Leavenworth County zoning and subdivision regulations.
Second.
Do you want to
Would you
add
like to add the amendment to
Article 22, Section 2?
Oh, is that the one? Yeah.
About the 60 days.
Yes, add that one too. What is it?
Article
Article 22, Section 2.
I second.
Doug, second? Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, let me call roll. Steve Rosenthal,
Yes.
Jaden Bailey,
Yes.
Wolf Schmidt,
Yes.
William Guschalk,
Yes.
Jeff Spink,
Yes.
Doug Tystad,
Yes.
Robert Owens,
Yes.
Steve Skeet,
Yes.
Alan Stewart.
Yes.
Motion is carried by a vote of 9-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than 9 a.m. on July 3rd, 2024, in the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Before I make a motion to adjourn, I want to let everybody know tonight is Wolf Schmidt's last night. And we just want to say thank you so much for what you've done for all these years. Volunteer, a true volunteer servant to our communities, Wolf. I really appreciate it.
I love the county, and I think it's going in the right direction.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I make a motion that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.